Planet Earth, hundreds of millions of years in the future. Intergalactic explorers return to their home planet in search of signs of ancient civilizations. They find a planet that has changed beyond recognition. Gone are the familiar continents that we know today. Instead, they find a giant landmass with huge mountain ranges, massive frozen snowfields, and glaciers. The once thriving metropolis they seek has disappeared. A few broken remnants are all that remain, crushed and buried beneath tons of rock. Could this be a future vision of Earth? Naked Science asks, what forces could create such a bleak and barren world? And investigates how the awesome power of colliding continents shapes and reshapes our planet in an endless cycle of construction and destruction. Our world, the Earth. From space, it's easy to see the distinctive pattern of land that makes up the continents: North America, South America, Africa, Antarctica, Europe, Asia, and Australia. Giant landmasses separated by oceans that stabilize the environment with hospitable weather patterns, suitable for civilization and cities to evolve and prosper. Now imagine our planet ravaged by storm force winds, subjected to extremes of temperature, giant freezes, heat waves, and droughts. A world where cities are crushed and destroyed, where Africa tramples New York underfoot, and London freezes at the North Pole.
The geological future of New York is going to be rather traumatic. North America and Europe are going to collide with one another.
The world as we know it will be unrecognizable. This is not a portrait of the Earth after a devastating global disaster. This is how nature will shape our planet many millions of years in the future. This incredible remodeling is just part of a natural cycle that has shaped the Earth for the last 4 billion years, and will continue to do so until the sun finally destroys its surface once and for all. Today, our continents may seem solid, safe, and forever fixed in place, but they are none of those things. These great landmasses are constantly on the move. Speed up the last few billion years, and one can see the continents sailing across the globe. Powerful forces deep within the planet rip the continents apart and then smash them together in an ever-changing cycle of death and rebirth. Oceans disappear, mountains crumble, and rise again. Landmasses form and reform. Colliding continents are the mightiest force on Earth.
When we look at the history of planet Earth, we see that it is full of change. Change is part of nature, and this change continues today and will continue into the future.
To understand how the continents shape our world, we must first travel back in time to the very birth of the Earth. 4.5 billion years ago, the Earth is created from the debris left over from the formation of the Sun. Dust and debris collide and clump together. Once these clumps grow into objects about half a mile in diameter, they create enough gravity to attract more material. Slowly, these clumps grow into as many as 20 planets. As these new planets orbit the Sun, they begin to collide. One collision with the planet Theia, which creates the Moon, obliterates the surface of the Earth. The energy from the collision makes the Earth incredibly hot. At around 11,000 degrees Fahrenheit, it's more than 7 times hotter than the inside of a cremation furnace. Earth is a massive molten ball of boiling lava. This is primeval hell, where thousands of asteroids and comets bombard our world. But deep within the planet, a process starts that will lead to the first land. The heaviest elements, lead and nickel, sink down toward the center of the Earth to form a molten core. The lighter elements, including oxygen and silicon, rise toward the surface, where they erupt in volcanoes of molten rock. Slowly, the Earth's surface cools. Molten lava solidifies to form patches of crust, the seeds of the first continents. But even as the first land is born, it faces a battle to survive.
We were being bombarded by a large number of asteroids very early in the history of the planet. So there's a lot of dynamic change from being walloped by giant impacts, disturbing things.
Geology professor Sam Bowring is an expert in early Earth and the genesis of the continents.
When we had an early crust is an interesting question. I suspect we had an early crust from day one. The question is, how long was that preserved? When the Earth was being bombarded constantly by asteroids, the chance of preserving any small chunk of that crust was very low.
The relentless bombardment destroys the new planet's crust almost as soon as it forms. This recycling of the surface continues for many millions of years.
But as the flux of asteroids began to wane, and as the Earth matured a little bit, I suspect the early crust lasted a little bit longer.
Eventually, the barrage from asteroid impact slows down. The surface of the Earth continues to cool. But the Earth is missing one vital ingredient: oceans.
Where Earth got its water has been a controversial topic over the years. I think most people now think that many meteoritic bodies actually contain quite a lot of water.
Water carried by meteors and asteroids may form the oceans that surround the first continents.
We're faced with a very serious situation in this generation. There are insane people who wish to rule the world. They wish to continue to rule the world on violence and repression. And we are all the victims of that violence and repression. We, as the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere, have been resisting this violence and this oppression for 500 years. We know that the black people have been resisting it for at least that long. And we know that the white people have had to endure it thousands of years. And now it's come full swing to this generation that we live in. Nuclearization of the world. You see, this cannot be, we cannot allow this to continue to go on. We cannot do it. You see, we cannot expect that the pro-nuclear oppressor, that other side, we cannot expect that they're going to change for us. They are going to become more brutal. They're going to become more repressive because it's a matter of dollars and their illusionary concepts of power. We have to reestablish our identity. We have to understand who we are and where we fit in the natural order of the world, because our oppressor deals in illusions. They tell us that it is power, but it is not power. They may have all the guns and they may have all the racist laws and judges and they may control all the money, but that is not power. These are imitations of power, and they are only power because in our minds we allow it to be power. But it's all an imitation. Racism and violence, racism and guns, economics, the brutality of the American corporate state way of life is nothing more than violence and repression, and it has nothing to do with power. It is brutality. It is a lack of a sane, it's a lack of a sane balance. The people who have created this system and they perpetuate this system, they are out of balance. They have made us out of balance. They have come into our minds and they've come into our hearts and they've programmed us because we live in this society, and they've put us out of balance. And because we are out of balance, we no longer have the power to deal with them. They have conquered us as a natural power. See, we are power. They deal in violence and repression. We are power. We are a part of the natural world. All of the things of the natural world are a natural part of the creation and feed off the energy of our sacred Mother Earth. We are power. But they have separated us from our spiritual connection to the earth, so people feel powerless. We look at the oppressor and we look at the enemy because they have the most guns and the most lies and the most money. People start to feel powerless. We are power. We are a natural part of the creation. We were put here on this sacred Mother Earth to serve a purpose. And somewhere in the history of people, we're forgetting what the purpose is. The purpose is to honor the earth. The purpose is to protect the earth. The purpose is to live in balance with the earth. The earth is our mother. And we will never free ourselves as human people. We will never free ourselves as sexual people. We will never free ourselves until we address the issue of how we live in balance with the earth. Because all of our resistance and all of our struggle is hollow, it's false, it's another one of those oppressors' hypocrisies. If we do not look out for the welfare of the earth first, because I do not care who it is, any child that turns on their mother is living in a terrible, terrible confusion. The earth is our mother.